Welcome back, everybody. This is Minicoder coming to you with a new tutorial within the series of Beginner Programming 101. I believe last time we left off, we discussed the differences between properties of classes and the private properties. We also discussed the difference between getters and setters in a method. If you remember correctly, a getter and setter, although it acts as a method because there's curly braces and you can do logic and functionality within it and return something, you really don't want to make that into your method to do things. You can do some light logic if you need to, like when somebody hands you something, you want to do some kind of checking, trap catching to make sure that they didn't pass you a null, and if it's a null, return something else like an empty string if it's a string, those kind of things. But you really don't want to do any heavy logic in that. Most of that needs to be inside of an actual method, which we've been doing from day one. So I assume that everybody probably has some familiarity with methods at this point. We also went over instance variables and reference variables and where they relate. Instance variables are something that gets created once and stays within the scope of that statement or method, whereas a reference type is exactly what it says. It is a reference to the space of memory or that object, and you can set it within a method and it will be passed back without actually having to return it. So with that said, we really don't have that much left for the basic programming schedule. Just to go over real quick, we have statements, which is like your if, else, while, do while loops, etc., and stuff like that. You've got your null values and try catches, which will lightly lead into exception handling. After that, please, if you liked my courses, definitely subscribe, because if you go onto this page that I started making, I've got a huge list of advanced topics. Some will probably be broken up into their own playlists or series, and some will be within one. I've got design patterns, how to use generics and delegates, what the difference is between func and action, using expressions and link and encryption, a whole bunch of great stuff. So encapsulation. So please feel free to subscribe, and thumbs up if you like it. Thumbs down, please don't hesitate to thumbs down too. Just the only thing I ask is if you thumbs down, please give me some feedback. If there are any issues, either the volume's not good enough, I need to zoom in more, you'd like to see different things, maybe have me speed up a little more, maybe I'm going a little too much in the weeds, please let me know so that I can change my tutorials so that everybody gets what they want out of them. So that's my spiel. So today, like I said, we will start with statements. We may get into null values. We'll see what the time is. So as far as statements, I have a quick Actually, let me undo this here, because that's going to start in the middle of the PowerPoint. But I have a quick PowerPoint, and then we can go into code itself. And what I did find is that I'm finding part of the reason I'm going 15 minutes over is because I'm writing code on the fly. I'm going to decide not to do that in every situation because I think it's taking longer, and I think if I could describe each line, it might be more efficient. And I'm all about efficiencies. So, as of the topic today, basic programming statements. So, what are statements? Let's see what the next thing is. So, what are statements? Statements implement business logic through a series of decision making. What does this mean? So, what this means is that that within your programming or your development, your if statement, let's take an if and else statement for as a go-to, because it's very simplistic. When you're making some kind of logical decision, because that's what an if statement is, you're making a logical determination as to whether something is true or something is false. And if something is true or false, you are going to react to that in a certain way. Most of those decision making inside of the logic of true or false, and what happens based on those true or false values are business logical decisions. An example of that would be if, let's say, you wanted to, let me think about this. If you wanted to only update somebody's record if the record doesn't already exist, so you have an employee record and you don't want to create one, you want to update it, but you only want to create it only if it doesn't exist. But if it does exist, then you would want to update it instead in the database, right? Or this whatever the system of record happens to be. That is a decision. That's a little less business logic and like data 101 is that inserts are more expensive than updates, so you want to update when possible. So that may not be as much of a business concept as a data concept, but I think it gives the point across. So let's look at our first type of statement. You have your if statement. So if true, do something. Now, if true can be a ton of different things. You can, as long as it turns into a boolean, it doesn't care. So, and what I mean is that it's the evaluation of the if statement is true or false. So, if my name, let's just say there's a variable, right? Let's go string my name is equal to Greg, right? Okay. If my name is equals, so they had to make a determination between this equals and an equal sign, an operator with it in if statement. And operators are what you would typically from high school have. You'd have greater, equal, you have greater than, or greater than, you have less than, and you can also have less than equal to, or greater than or equal to. An equal to, so if my name equals Greg, Greg, do that. Do stuff, right? So my name, so this would equal out to be true. Now, if I did this, obviously the string values don't equal, so this would never fire. It would never go within these squigglies. And this also, again, these squigglies are your scope. So I can actually name something, my name in here, and it'll be completely different because within here is a different scope. So if we go back here, go back to my PowerPoint. Where are you? You have another one called if else. So you have that same if statement, and then you can have an else do something else. There's also something called an else if, which I know I didn't put in the PowerPoint, but I can give you a quick example in pseudocode here. So if my name is Greg, else if my name is equal to Greg, then we want to do that, right? And then you can chain these. So then you can have a catch-all. Otherwise, if that's the truth, then default result answer, right? So if we didn't get anything we were expecting, we'd get some kind of default result. If you're looking for Greg, it would fall in here, and it does something else. If the name was not equal to Greg, this would hit this. Now, technically, you could look at it this way: is that this and this would actually probably most often equal out to be the same. However, because this gets hit first, your else never happens. And the reason I say that is because most of the time you would have if it equals to this, or if it equals to something else. So if my name equals Greg, if my name equals Greg, it'll go in there and it'll fall out. Your else in this case would never get hit. Just like if my name was, if this was Greg, if I hit this, that's fine. Even if I did this, so if this, else if this, obviously it's redundant, but this would never get hit. This hits and it breaks out. So that's a very handy thing and often a debugging problem because people will forget that once you drop out, you drop out. So there's your if else again here. And then you have this thing called a do while loop. And this should be lowercase while. Whoops. Hold on. Went too far here. Do something. So there's a do while and a while loop. And let me pseudocode that out too. I think that will make a little more sense if I do that. So do, I'm going to actually do the exact same thing. So do write to log while I is less than 10 and do I plus plus, and then you would do write something else, right? Let's just check real quick here. Yes. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. So it is only one statement. Hold on. Did I do that right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you don't. In this case, I was mixing my while loops and my do while loops. So let's do this like that. And okay. So what this is doing is it does do something while I is less than 10, and every time we do whatever that is, we write to the log, and then we increment I plus 1. And once this actually reaches I is equal to 10, because it'll still be less than 10 while it's 9, it'll break out of the whole sequence. A while loop, however, defines your I is less than 10 at the top, so it makes a decision immediately whether or not it should happen, and then it would do I plus plus and write to log. I know I'm not spelling great, but I think you get the point. So what's the difference between the two? Well, there's really only one small difference, and I very rarely use do while. But the difference is that you have your do while does whatever that is before it even interprets what the condition is. So if you need something to at least happen once, regardless of what you're looking for as a true statement, because obviously since it's while something, this has to become either true or false, and it continues. You would use a do while. So you would do this, then do that, right? That will give you your do while. A while loop checks immediately whether or not it should be run at all, and then runs. So when you want to, while this happens, then do this, but never do it before that, you would use the while loop. Okay, so the do while would be like if you want to, actually I really can't give an example here. Let me see. What do we do here? So if you want to write to the console every single time while x, even when it is defined and equals 0, well, then you would do that right there. Okay, but like I showed here, you can basically do the exact same thing. The difference here is that console.writeLine X is going to happen prior to checking the while, where this is only going to happen if you're less than 5. So you'll notice that this will probably happen 5 times, and this will happen 6 times. Or I'm sorry, the other way around. This will happen 6 times, this will happen 5 times once we actually get to the code, which we're almost there, I promise. When should we use statements? When there is a logical separation of results based some sort of based on some sort of development or business rule. Do not use them when the solution can be done on a cleaner way by not returning certain data if you own the code. And when I say if you own the code, that's if it's not inside of a DLL, there may not be a way to do it. But the reason I say that is because a lot of people check for nulls or empties, which while that's great, you may not need to check for that. You have to get an if statement that checks to see what something's blank or empty, but then again, you may, if it's a list, you may need to see whether there's a count of nothing, because most of the time it'd be better to get an empty list out of the calling method than a null value that will blow things up. So pick your poison. I can see where I might get a nasty gram just even saying that, because some people are fully invested in DLL in nulls. So I've had arguments with DBAs on that all the time. So as I promised, we will do some code. I can tell you right now, if you already understand what I'm talking about and don't need to really look at the code, you can stop now. We're at 17 minutes, because I probably will not get to nulls, and it probably won't be for a couple days, with it being the holidays, that I get to it. So I have a couple methods here. I cleaned up all the stuff we had done before. There's this is statement method, so that is only doing an if statement. So we're going to pass in one number and two numbers as our parameters. We have a bool right here that tells it whether it is correct or not. And then if num1 plus num2 is equal to 5, then we set it to correct, and regardless, we return the is correct variable, which is boolean, so that matches that. Just one thing to note: this is the same. You are not setting a value. However, bool by default cannot be null, so it defaults to false. Just like an int cannot be null, it defaults to 0, so it will never blow up. I like to put false there more for readability purposes. I'm very big on readability, and I love commenting. I've been getting on my guys a lot lately about their lack of commenting. However, I also like self-documenting code. This is statement method, so this really could have been if statement method, really. If statement method. So now I know this when I'm looking at these for my view, for my program that I'm writing here. This is an if statement method. This is an is-else statement method. This is a do-while loop method. So, and this is a while method. So we're almost at 20 minutes, so I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit. So let's if statement. Oops. What is going on here? Oh, I didn't make any of these static, and the main method is static, so it makes it a little harder without really going over static, which is going to be an advanced class as to why I had to do this. So, so let's see. If statement method 1, 3, and if else no, oh, I did is elf. Okay. is else statement method. What did I do? Nothing? Okay, that's fine. What is the problem here? Is statement method. Is it not like, oh. Yeah, that's right. Oh, what am I doing? Yeah. It's almost 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so I'm getting a little tired, so please forgive me. Do while loop method and while loop method. Okay, so we've got our if statement, which is going to return a string. So let's do console dot write line and is the result correct. Okay, and we'll do that. Perfect. Alright, and we won't do the else if because I think that's pretty obvious what an else statement is. It's just if this isn't correct, you can either not put an else there, or you can say, like, if this didn't default to false, or there was some logic after this, I could put else is correct equals false. That would be a valid use of it because you want to know whether or not, or actually, let's do this. Just to give this a little more interesting, return string, close string, right? Oops, string like that, and we can do is correct, and num1 plus num2 is equal to 5. There. Return string is equal to that. Num1, yep, dot toString, oops, dot toString. So this is a helper method that I'm using here, and what this will do is it's going to take the integer and automatically convert it to a string. I know it's a little advanced, but just take my word for it. It's a .NET helper method that allows it to take the number, use the ASCII table, and figure out what the string value of that is. And because we changed the return type, we'll do return string. Okay, and then else numbers provided do not equal out to 5. Okay, so that's a good example of using if and else statement. Return string like that. Okay, so let's do that. What are you complaining about here? Got that, expected that, y equals, sorry about this, this should not be, there we go, must have had a colon or something and didn't realize it. Okay, so inside the do while loop, again, we set our variable that we're checking against. The do while is going to write the line, then increment x, which is the shorthand for x plus 1, like that. It's the same thing. And then while x is less than 5, which it should iterate 5 times, it will also redo that. The while loop, however, does not start until until it decides whether it is validated. And in both cases, I don't remember if I mentioned it, as soon as the while condition becomes true instead of false, it drops out and stops. And then you have your switch statement. A switch statement allows you to provide some kind of variable. It can be a string, an integer, an enum, a whole bunch of other things, double, and then you provided a case. A case means if it equals that, so it's almost like a pseudo if statement. Run this, and then you have this break here. Break means do not go any further and just drop out and do your merry way. The default, if none of these two cases, so if I send in Wednesday, it'll default to this. If I decide to call it Tuesday, it'll fall into this, or into that, and Monday it'll fall into that. So let's see what happens here. So if else statement does not exist in that's right, because I took it away. Okay. Do while and while. So those will all console out right line. So let's say do while result do while result plus sorry, I get anal about what I write. And while loop result. Alright, so let's let her roll and see what happens. Build errors. Oh, that just means I need to do that maybe? No? I thought I did that. Okay, I missed something there. Okay, so let's run it. Okay, so our results. Let's go down to the if statement first. So the if statement is the result correct numbers provided. Is the result? Not sure what. Oh, to let you know which one. Okay. The result correct numbers provided do not equal out to 5. So what do we provide? We provide 1 and 3. So 1 and 3 is not equal to 4. The do while loop. So that gave us a result of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The while loop returns 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's interesting. They gave you the same results. Well, let's see what we got here. So let's first clean this up, because it really doesn't need that. We will also change this to 2, because 2 plus 3 I believe is 5, last time I checked. And then do while, and while. So the do while, it's less than 5. is interesting. I'll have to do some research on that. As far as I know, the do while loop and the while loop are different in the fact that the do while work happens first. Well, I guess, okay, so the way that actually works out, they will give you the same amount of results. However, if I were to do this and do this, you're going to see a console line here because it hasn't made the distinction whether or not it actually equals 5, which obviously up here it does not. Now here, because you're making that decision at this point, you're never going to hit this. So we're hitting 30 minutes. I don't know even if it's going to take this, but let me give it a shot. Okay, so 2 plus 3 equals 5. Perfect. Dual while results is 0. So I did get 1 because we're at the index of 0. And you'll notice I didn't get a while loop at all because it already knew it wasn't 5. It's never going to hit it. So that's where your big differences are. I don't think I did anything with the switch statement. Well, we can easily do that. So let's do, and then we've got to be done because we're at well over 30. So switch, what the heck did I call it? Oops. Switch statement, again, I didn't call it static. Switch statement. Method. Okay, so the string I'm going to give it is Monday. And then I'm going to do one more here and make it Wednesday. Or actually, let's just do Friday. Why not? So you should see something like what? For Monday, you should see today is Monday. For Friday, you should say valid date not found because it's going to fall into the default. And there we go. So let's see, 2 plus that, still the same. Today is Monday, and validate not found. So there you go. So that's statements. We went over the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 most common statements, and I think everybody probably has a good handle on it. So real quickly, since we're still at we are definitely way over time. Next time we will probably go over nulls, and I think that's the last thing in the series, and then we'll start going over advanced stuff in the next series. Oh, and try-catch, nulls and try-catches. We'll try to get those into one. So for now, please, if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, please give it a thumbs down if you'd like, and just if you wouldn't mind give me some information as to why and maybe how I can improve the videos. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great evening.